So today we're going to run through a few cheap beasts, meta players that we're going to see in FC26. Now, you can kind of almost, not necessarily guarantee, but you can definitely put a pulse on some of the players that are going to be done on that first day. Yes, we know who the best players are going to be. That's quite an obvious one. It's very easy to do. Once we get into the game, we'll kind of talk about the more expensive players and really see where their market price goes. Whereas players that we're going to be discussing today, they could be 10k. They could also be a K after the first hour. You forget, year in, year out, more packs get opened at the very start of the game each year. Meaning players definitely go for a lot less than what they would have done maybe 5 years ago. We saw Rooney go for 250k before the price ranges came in. So now we're kind of seeing now at a point where these players on day one are going to be standard. They're not going to be, everyone's going to be looking at the Virgils, looking at the Salibas, because you're going to open up multiple packs. But when it comes to the cheap beasts that you could still throw in, not having to spend absolute bank on every single day of FC26's launch, these are the players that I'd be looking at. Morelio, I think, could be one of the more expensive ones, I must admit, but I do think he's going to be a solid option when it comes to a centre-back. We then go in to the standard Nathan Ake. With centre-backs, it's a hard one because obviously you're going to go for more of the pace side of stuff to start with the game. It's just naturally what you kind of go towards until then you learn the full defensive tactics and then you start getting playstyle pluses. But obviously with Ake, he's always been a solid amount. Same as Akanji. He's always been cheap, reliable, very good as a starter before you start to get into your Salibas. You start to get into your 100, 200, 300k Van Dijks. These are the players that are most definitely worth looking in there. We then also throw into the right back side of stuff, Pedro Porro. Always brilliant, very reliable. Him and I believe it was Undogi that I don't know if I've got here. Both of these two together have been a very nice partnership for very cheap. It's always been the same. Undogi was kind of the first time around last year. Pedro Porro has always been kind of against that kind of Carl Walker. We obviously had Robertson the other side in previous years where he was at his best. So that was kind of where you'd jump up to, and they were never that expensive. Carl Walker a little bit more, but most definitely Pedro Porro puts himself in that kind of contention. With Undogi, obviously Cucurella getting the upgrade is an interesting one, but I do think for an 80 rated card, he's not going to be 10k. Like maybe the very first hour, but he's definitely going to come down massively. And I have seen quite a lot of players not quite get that 4-star weak foot, so I could see that being a very big thing when it comes to upgrades going forward. But the pace is going to start him off quite well. I think Undogi is going to be a fantastic option. Now, this one is only specific if he does have that playstyle plus. I don't know if they know all of the playstyle plus or not. It could be one of them, but if he has that slide tackle plus, that for me is absolutely brilliant because you're not going to see many 80s, if any, with a playstyle plus already added. If it doesn't, it could still be a semi-decent card, but I'd still go with Pedro Porro, to be honest. But Wan-Bissaka's going to just have the more pacier side, if anything. We also then go the other side again into Matheson. Again, another one that will be quite cheap. I know these are very Prem heavy, but we're going to go into more of the kind of outer leagues. It just comes that you know where the Prem defense is. It's the easiest defense to get set up, and you can kind of figure out the rest as you go forward. We then also have Gusto if we're going really low price. I do think he's going to be a great starter sort of right back that you can get if obviously Pedro Porro does for whatever reason have a price tag on him. I don't think he will, but I definitely think these are going to be the ones that you're going to be looking at more so than ever. We then throw in a little bit of Serie A. We've obviously gone with Dodo, or I think you say you pronounce his name. I don't know if the accent on the O is different, but regardless, always a solid shout. Nice upgrade on his card. As soon as he gets into them promos, we see a little bit more about him, but naturally he does fizzle off eventually. And the other side, we have got Spinazzola coming in as another cheaper option if we're looking for some sort of chemistry links. Both going in the Serie A, which is always nice. It is a shame that they're not Italian, both of them, because it could have been a nice link between them. But Pacy, similar sort of defensive ability, and just a nice little cheap let-off before you go for like your Theo Hernandez as such. Now we go into the CDMs. Zachariah is always an option every single day of the week. He's got a decent amount of pace. He is very heavy on that defense. Great physicality. In-game, normally, he's pretty decent on the ball, which is fantastic. Obviously, when it comes to dribbling, he's always going to be the passer of the ball. He's going to get rid of it rather than necessarily be the one that's actually dribbling with the ball. But this is why we have him as a solid, staid CDM. We then throw into Guendouzi, another option that you can put into more of a CDM or push him forward into more of that centre mid. He kind of has a bit of vibe on both. You throw an anchor on him, you throw a shadow on him. He's going to be fantastic across that role every single day of the week. Same as Pacy. Now going a bit off-brand a little bit, going into the kind of Saudi league where it's going to be difficult to find them players that really work, but they're most definitely going to have a solid starter team, and then maybe some high-end sort of stuff. A CR7 evolution is going to be fantastic. There might be a sprinkle of a few players that maybe once the first promo's gone, you might be able to add in somewhere, but they always miss out on that mid-tier. They've always got a solid low tier that gets you through the first week, first day, then the mid-tier kind of, then you go over to like Prem, you go into La Liga, and then high tier, you might sprinkle them in when it comes to having an icon in the team. If you get a Eusebio, you get a Future, you get a Figo, you might throw a Ronaldo in. Benzema, I'm pretty sure, I don't know what rating Benzema's even is on this game, to be honest. Let's have a look. But if you get like someone like a big boy Benz, then obviously he's going to be one that could throw himself in. Like, yes, pace is going to be a little bit more on the lower end. You could throw him as kind of like that false 9 striker with the low driven as well. It's a nice option that you could throw in. You've obviously then got the likes of someone like Mane. He's going to come in as an 83. Again, throw an evolution on him. It's a solid start. It may not be the greatest in terms of going against some of the Prem, some of the La Liga mids, but most definitely you could still get away with them, and they're more than likely going to come in quite cheap. Which then throws us into the centre mids. Thuram is always the option. Last year we obviously got overshadowed by the gold because him and his brother did both manage to get lovely upgrades relatively early on as well. I don't know if it was both of them that got Player of the Month. So one of them got Player of the Month, I think, was the striker. I don't actually know their first names, but the Thuram sentiment, I want to say, was it a road to the final? It might have been. But regardless, he was always going to get an upgrade there. I do think this version is still going to be fantastic in this game specifically as well. He's always good on the ball, defensively sound, add a little bit more passing, shooting pace. He's going to have that ball absolutely wrapped around his foot. Then, going back to a bit of Prem, Joelinton's always a nice starter. Start centre mid. Yes, we'll definitely have a bit of Prem tax on him. It's why going into the Saudi, into the Serie A, maybe even throwing a few even Bundesligas in there, they're not going to have that much tax on how expensive they are, because you know, when it comes to Prem, you are trying to link them. You're not necessarily going crazy with so many Brazilians, even though it's not the worst nation that you could go with links, to be fair. But naturally, he's always going to be that little bit more expensive. That's just how the game's been. So if we throw in a kind of a Bundesliga option, Goretzka's going to have such a good game as well. Him and Kimmich have always been a very nice starting duo. Goretzka normally starts in on the lower end, and once you get to kind of that end game team of the season, he really comes alive just because his stats are so well balanced. You throw an anchor on him, you have him more defensive. You throw a hunter on him, you have him more centre mid cam-esque. He's definitely going to be somebody that can carry the ball for you. Kimmich is another one that I haven't really seen this year. 89, so I mean he's still absolutely firing on all cylinders there. And to be fair, I mean the stats in itself for an 89 don't look that crazy. Great passing and dribbling, but as a defensive mid, I'd have expected a bit more on this end, to be honest, even if the pace is a little bit lower. But again, they're going to be a great partnership. Zambo is one of the ones we saw from the Player of the Months with the dual Play Store Plus, and most definitely introduced himself well. Great defensive ability, great pace on the ball, especially for such a big player in that midfield. Him and Thuram, him and obviously going into... So if you're looking for coins, check in the description for El Dorado. Depending on the coin amount that you're looking for, the delivery time is displayed on the website, and you'll see lots of different trusted sellers with reviews on specifics, and also the ability to be able to pick who you want. It will also show how much they have in stock, and obviously you can see that they are verified members. There is 100% refund ability and also 24/7 support if you need any questions with your coin needs. Also, if you head over to Trustpilot as well, you can see over 30,000 upvotes for them. You can see how reliable they are. Obviously great feedback across the entire board with El Dorado. So when on checkout, make sure you are using the code JT11 for 5% off your order every time. Discount code JT11. Now let's get back to the video. Who did I say earlier? Thuram and... I can't remember. Whoever the other centre mid was. That's terrible. That was like 3 players ago. But regardless, Serie A's always had a nice centre mid vibe. They've always got that solid amount that you can throw in. You go into positions, you look at kind of your attacking mids, your can't even press the button here. Centre mid, cams and CDMs. You've kind of got your... This is where they lack, is that absolute pinnacle, that kind of De Bruyne 3 years ago-esque sort of play. You've got 87, Barella gets nice upgrades, Dybala goes into a striker, Çalhanoğlu going into a CDM apparently this year, but centre mid definitely. McSauce going to throw in the mid, Locatelli with a little bit less pace. Guendouzi is going to be there. Ederson will definitely be there. I think he's next on the list. But you've always got a solid midfield. They always play with very high intensity when it comes to the midfield. And Ederson was the next one up there. We saw him during a showdown, and he was fantastic, very well balanced, and I think this card is going to do exactly the same. You throw in, if the anchors and the chem styles do exactly the same as prior, we're going to see it's a solid card. It's a very, very nice card. You could even throw, if you wanted more on the engine side of stuff, 82, 82, 85. Great stats across the board for a day one. This is not for a month into the game. More than likely you end up with better, but I do think this is going to be a fantastic one. Now into the cams. Interesting option. I do think he's probably going to go for a little bit more now, just purely on the fact that he has now gone to Prem, he's gone to Spurs, so that's going to always automatically add a little bit of an addition of cost on him, but I do think he'd be a solid option to start with, let alone that going into an evolution point of view. Might even do an evolution kind of video and see from like 84 downwards into the 80s, who would be the best players to get an evolution in each category. You're looking at someone like a Rashford. You're looking at someone like a Kolo Muani coming in as the cheaper overall players, and then you get them up into that upgrade will be fantastic. Now, throwing in a bit of Bundesliga, don't know anything about him, but I mean, in general, you could get a bit out of him. I do think if you throw a Hunter on him, as a cam, you could go there. You could even go with an engine if you don't want him necessarily shooting as much, but more assist in the game. It's just going to be a solid card for very cheap. I really do think that's going to be an interesting one. Tillman will be one that I'll be watching, most definitely. Then we throw ourselves into Trincao, I believe is how you pronounce his name. They always have some very solid, low-budget Portuguese beasts. There's always wingers, there's always strikers, there's always cams. Every other position is kind of like, okay, that is what it is. But attacking option, they do produce some very good players. And I do think, again, 4-star, 2-star, I mean, yeah, kind of go away from that 2-star a little bit. Again, like Tillman, if you wanted him more for the kind of ingenious of passing and dribbling, you've got yourself, he's not going to be worth more than like 2k, guaranteed. Like, he's going to be a cheap player that you can most definitely get yourselves in there. Berardi going onto the wing now, looking at him as more of a cheaper option for the Serie A. If we're throwing in kind of a bit of Spinazzola, we're throwing in a bit of Dodo, you're going to get a solid option on the wing. He may not be the blistering pace, but a very nice shooter, pace, dribbling, and you've got to kind of take into consideration, not everybody's looking at 90 stats across the board now. We're going right back to the start where everybody is looking incredibly low. So even if now it's like, okay, I've gone from 95 across all stats to this, it doesn't look incredible. This is the start of the game, unfortunately. Chukwueze, a beautiful card going into the Serie A as well. This is going to be more of your kind of Adama sort of route if you're looking for just blistering pace. His shooting's a little bit lacking in comparison to Berardi. His dribbling is there. I mean, composure is absolutely shot. It's literally an Adama build when it comes to it. You've just got pace going forward. The shooting is going to be very inconsistent, but you could potentially get down the wing and even just knock it to someone with a bit more composure in front of goal. And it's going to be another option that you can obviously throw in there. Alanga's going to have that same sort of vibe, but a little bit more on that composure. The shooting's definitely going to need a little bit of work. Whether you just go all out with the Hunter and just max out that pace as much as possible, adding that little bit of shooting, this again could be a great starter evolution as well. Throw him on the wing. He's going to have that maxed out pace as much as possible. The only thing that will stop him with a starter evolution is going to be the fact he has got a lot of pace, which they won't want you to upgrade too much quickly. Bruma is going to be very similar as well. Again, a lot more composure in comparison to Chukwueze with the 80 now. Bit more on that shooting. The pace is obviously still absolutely up there, so we could see a little bit more of a consistent sort of winger here. He's still not going to be kind of the likes of a Salah or a Son back in the day, but he's definitely going to have a nice starting mentality to him. We then move in. Loriente, I want to say pronounce his name. I'm probably butchering it in general. We got Armand, beautiful 80 winger. We obviously saw him with I want to say he got a team of the season. I know I've seen him in kind of more of an ender game card, but I can't remember which one. Again, very similar in terms of these wingers. These are going to be the cheap wingers you get that just go down the wing. They're not going to do too much more than that. Yes, they might go around the keeper every now and then, but realistically, you're looking to try and just get down that wing, pass a very kind of consistent fullback with little pace, and that's your kind of in-game. Which then we move into strikers. Ramirez and obviously Nicole coming in with obviously the pace, 90 apiece. You've got 84 versus 79 on the shooting. You've got 86 dribbling versus the 84. And then you've got the 87 physicality versus the 83. Ramirez, for me, looks fantastic. The main thing that Nicole's got is the 4-star, which could have a very nice ability in there. I'm interested to see in general, though, because if these, I don't know if the play styles are completely right, but Jockey just doesn't seem to be right on a player that is in the striking role. Even in the cam, I'm just interested to see why. But in general, two very nice strikers that are going to come in quite cheap. We then have a brand new Serie A striker, always great on that ability to start with, Jonathan David. Beautiful card. I do think he's going to be one of the more consistent, low-rated strikers. If you're in that kind of lower end, he's going to be brilliant. Yes, in the kind of higher end, looking at your higher divisions, he's probably going to need replacing very quickly. But realistically, if you are on that topper end already, you more than likely are better at the game than the average person. So naturally, you might be able to get a better tune out of him, or you might have spent a little bit more money on the game as well to potentially get a little bit more lucky in that striking zone. We then have Amora coming in for the Bundesliga, purely pace-driven already. Obviously, you could go with a finisher if you're quite happy with that pace. All in out with a finisher, 93 in the dribbling, 88 shooting, 90 pace. I mean, that's going to be a great starter striker to go with. It's just an easy one. And one that I do think, as an evolution point of view, as a Saudi point of view, Nunez is going to be an interesting one. He's obviously moving away from the Prem. I imagine him to be quite cheap in comparison to last year, which I think he was only maxed out at 10 because of the evolution that you could have done. So it will be an interesting one to see where he can kind of fit in. But we have seen some Saudi players that definitely can, and he would be a perfect striker to go in with that pace, again, with potentially that finisher, just to add that lengthy striking ability down the 9. Let me know what you think, though. Is there any players that you're specifically looking out for? And I'll catch you all for that next one. Peace.